With a show of hands, how many of you have ever experienced loss? Today I want to speak to you and anyone who has ever experienced loss in their life. Maybe you've lost a loved one. Maybe you've lost a dream. Maybe you've lost a child. Maybe you've lost a husband or wife. Maybe you've lost a relationship. Maybe you've lost a season of your life that you can never get back. If that's you, then Naomi's story is for you. Naomi's story reminds us that even when life leaves us empty, God is still writing our story. What looks like the end may actually be the beginning of God's restoration. Naomi experienced deep loss. We first meet her in Ruth chapter 1. A famine strikes Bethlehem. Naomi's husband moves the family to Moab. At first, it probably seemed like a good decision. They were simply trying to survive. Then tragedy struck. Naomi's husband died. Then her two sons married Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. After that, both of her sons died as well. In a short period of time, Naomi lost her husband, both of her children. The loss was great. Some of you may have lost many in your family. You can understand Naomi's pain. The Bible doesn't hide her grief. In Ruth 1:20, she says, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." The name Naomi means pleasant. The name Mara means bitter. Naomi was saying, I am not the same woman anymore. Loss had changed her. Loss changes us. Maybe some of you understand that feeling. You remember a time when you laughed more, a time when you dreamed more, a time when life felt different. Then something happened. A loss, a disappointment, a heartbreak. You feel like a different person. That's exactly how Naomi felt. God was working, though, even when Naomi could not see it. One of the most beautiful lessons from Naomi's story is this. God was working hard behind the scenes while Naomi thought everything was falling apart. Naomi believed her story was ending. God was already arranging her restoration. While Naomi was grieving, God was preparing Ruth. While Naomi was hurting, God was preparing Boaz. While Naomi was empty, God was preparing provision. The amazing thing is that God never stopped working. Sometimes He is doing His greatest work in the seasons when we see Him the least. Romans 8:28 says, "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him." Notice it doesn't say only when things are good. Death isn't good. Pain isn't good. Loss isn't good. God can work through all of it. Ruth became the evidence of God's faithfulness. When Naomi told her daughters-in-law to stay behind, Ruth made one of the most famous statements in the Bible. Ruth 1:16 says, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Naomi may have felt abandoned. God had already placed someone beside her. Sometimes when we focus on what we've lost, we miss what God has left. Naomi lost much. She still had Ruth. Ruth would become one of the greatest instruments of restoration. There may be things you've lost, but don't overlook what God has already placed in your life. There is still peace. There is still purpose. There are still people who love you. There are still promises from God. God turned Naomi's empty season into a full season. When Naomi returned to Bethlehem, she said, "I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." Ruth 1:21. At that moment, she believed she had nothing, but God wasn't finished. Ruth met Boaz. Boaz became their kinsman redeemer. He married Ruth, and provision returned. Security returned. Hope returned. Eventually, a baby was born. That baby's name was Obed. The women of Bethlehem told Naomi, "He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age." Ruth 4:15. The woman who said, "I am empty," was now holding a promise from God in her arms. What a picture of restoration. God's restoration was bigger than Naomi realized. Here's the part Naomi never saw coming. That little baby, Obed, became the grandfather of King David. Through David's family line would come Jesus. Think about that. Naomi thought she was living through a tragedy. She was actually standing in the middle of God's redemption story. Sometimes we only see today's pain. God sees generations. Sometimes we see the chapter. God sees the entire book. Naomi never imagined that her story would help bring the Savior into the world. Yet God used her pain for a purpose far greater than she could understand. Maybe today you feel like Naomi. Maybe you've experienced loss. Maybe you've been carrying disappointment. Maybe you've been asking God why. Naomi's story teaches us that God is not finished just because a season has ended. A closed chapter is not the end of the story. The same God who restored Naomi is still restoring lives today. Joel 2:25 says, "I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten." Notice God didn't promise to restore days. He promised to restore years. Only God can do that. Only God can take broken pieces and create something beautiful. Only God can take emptiness and fill it again. Only God can turn mourning into joy. If God restored Naomi, He can restore you. Your story is not over. Your best chapter may still be ahead. Whenever you feel down, whenever you feel like you've lost something so important that you can't move on, or where is God in this situation? Where is God in this loss in my life? Always remember that He sees generations. He will restore the years that the locusts have eaten in your life. Give it to Him today.